Let me ask you about that photo finish, about this race to finding these genes. What was the incentive for this race? Was it, as Justice Kagan had asked in yesterday's argument, why shouldn't we worry that Myriad or companies like it will just say, well, we're not going to do this work anymore because, they wouldn't be able to protect their investment? Or as Scalia said, why would a company incur massive investment if it cannot patent? When the challenger's lawyer said curiosity and recognition as the responses, Scalia then said, well, that's lovely, right? What was driving the race? What was driving this photo finish?
It was trying to understand what's causing breast cancer in these families. It's an incredibly important question to these families. We've got somebody on this broadcast who knows what this means. Yeah. So, of course, you want to understand also, look, at that time in the early 1990s, the idea for finding these genes was also, maybe if you find what's broken, what we know from the genetic linkage is that there's a broken gene out there to be found. We know that because of the way it's inherited in families. So look, if we could go find what that is, suppose it is that you could fix the gene. And we were thinking along those lines in the early 1990s. And frankly, that dream hasn't completely gone away.
So all these companies were racing to find the answer, racing to identify and isolate the gene out of a sense of social obligation or glory?
You asked, so why were these people doing it? So then let's break it into categories.
Yeah.
Okay. The folks who were doing this under NIH grants and from the Wellcome Trust and the UK Cancer Research Campaign, they're doing it because they're great scientists and they have a really, really hard scientific problem. It's really worth solving, and everybody agrees on that. Why was Myriad doing it? Myriad was doing it for that reason too, probably, but they also were doing it under a for-profit model, and they were doing it because they thought there were the prospect of making some money off of it, and the easiest way to make money off of it in the short run was to do a diagnostic. In the long run, though, they got $5 million from Lilly, and Lilly gave them that $5 million in order to find the gene, hoping that it was actually going to lead to a therapeutic. Mm-hmm. So that's why those claims 1 and 2 actually probably mattered a lot to Eli Lilly, because they were thinking, hey, maybe we're going to take this gene, we're going to stick it in cells, we're going to clone it, and maybe we can turn it into either gene therapy or it's going to produce a viable BRCA1 gene that we can use as a treatment. Because we didn't know, is that going to work or not in 1995. So it was prospective patents that induced the private investment, but there was a whole mass of public investment, and that's what people often forget. You've got actually both things. The patents do matter for the private investment part.
If Myriad were to win here, or if it were to lose, what broader ramifications will it have? Will it impact other parts of biotechnology?
I think they're going to bend over. Kevin, you can weigh in on this, and you were there too. My sense from the oral arguments yesterday is they're going to bend over backwards to make this as narrow as they can.
But why, right? That's my question. I want to ask.
Really, they were asking. Every one of them was asking the question. It's not, are we going to have discoveries? But when Chris Hansen came back and said, yes, we're still going to have discoveries because you can get Nobel Prizes, academic pride, and NIH grants. Nobody wants to destroy that, but they want to make sure that there are commercial incentives too.
The biggest problem is if they said nothing that you get from nature is patentable, then what about antibiotics? What about lubricants from crude oil? I mean, nature's a lot smarter than we are. There are anti-cancer drugs that are in plants. If the justices were to say nothing that comes from nature is patentable, there'd be a big spillover effect.